Welcome to another episode of Paved with Good Intentions, you cutie patooties, you. We live in a crazy world. I wonder how I can profit off of that. Welcome to another episode of Paved with Good Intentions, the show that asks the difficult questions you didn't even think you cared about. I'm Danielle Kestner, your weekly Willy Wonka, and this podcast is brought to you sponsor-free, so thank you for supporting independent artists. Today we'll be talking about our passions, but first, here's a piece of random trivia. I can't believe it's already August. The summer is just flying by. Did you know that the month of August was named after Augustus Caesar in 8 BC? Before that, the month was called Sextilis, which basically means it was the sixth month on the Roman calendar. Now, Augustus chose that month particularly to commemorate his greatest triumphs. And today we feel that triumphant majesty of August still because, after all, it is National Goat Cheese Month. And now on to the episode, Passions of the Self. When we talk about passion, and it's something that we talk about a lot in our daily lives, is what are you passionate about? What drives you? What is something that you put your entire heart and soul into? When we talk about passions, that's what we're talking about. It's not just something that we like to do every once in a while or something that, we feel good about every now and again. Passions are something that are real, something that really channel the deepest part of ourselves. And today I want to explore that a little bit from sort of a conceptual idea, because for me, passions are a big part of who I am. I'm very passionate about certain things. And when I say I'm passionate, that means that it's something that, I think about a lot. I put a lot of my heart and soul into it, something like these podcasts that I'm doing. And I think about that, and I think about the passions that other people have that are different from mine, and how much they love those things and how much they put their souls into those. That I really just want to look at the concept today as kind of a higher level. So what is passion? When we say passion, what does that mean? The word passion actually comes from the Greek word pascho, which means to suffer. And it's a little bit interesting how the word has shifted over the years. Initially, passion was something that was actually more negative than positive. Passion was something that was considered a bad thing. An early church, when people talked about the passions were the negative things. They were lust, they were jealousy, they were anger. And that negative connotation, it was something that people had to kind of fight against. We had to fight against our passions because it really did have that suffering aspect to it, that in a negative way, that we suffer from jealousy, we suffer from anger, we suffer from lust, these type of negative emotions that early church really had against people. But what it is today is a little bit different, because it is still this really strong emotional thing. It's the deep experience of our emotions. When we talk about our passions, we're talking about something that is a deep experience of our emotions. For an example, if you're passionate about being a part of nature, of going out, going hiking, and preserving nature. So like when you do go hiking, making sure that you're cleaning up, or if you see trash, picking it up, or if there's wildlife, leaving it alone, and just not making an impact in a negative way, of preserving the natural world. And that passion drives so much of your thinking to where you see people who are doing stuff like this. You look at oil companies, you look at the garbage in the oceans, and you say that stuff just enrages me. And there's so much emotion behind it because you see the natural world and you see what people are doing to it, and you can't help but let those emotions boil to the surface. Now that's kind of a political passion, but it's something that people obviously feel very deeply about. Nature, preservation, conservationism, those are things that people feel very deeply about. And we talk about passion, and there is that idea of suffering behind it, because when something does go bad, then obviously people feel that negative, that anger, that justifiable rage when others are not as conscientious of their passions as they are. But passions are not always something that are meant to be, socially conscious. Obviously, it's a good thing when they are, but it could also be something that is, something just independently that you're passionate about, like something that you do. Writing is a great example of that because, as a writer, I can attest to how passionate I am about my writing. When I write a story, sometimes the stories aren't all that deep, but just to get into it, to get into the characters, to create these scenarios, to build these concepts, to fabricate entire worlds. It just, to do that, all the emotions just bubble to the surface and I can put those down on page. And it's amazing how awesome it feels to capture all those emotions, capture the imagination, channel all that into a creative outlet. And it's certainly something that I am passionate about. And that could be the same for other people, is using that love of it, and it's not just something they like to do, it's something they love to do, something that, you know, occupies your mind, something that takes every piece of your emotion and funnels it into something that you believe in, something that you want to share with the world, something that you just want to do for yourself. That's what passions are. And the suffering part of it is definitely real because it's something that we feel as a whole. It's not just, oh, I'm going to write a story, no big deal. It's like, I'm going to put myself into this world. I'm going to tap into all of the emotions that go with it, and I'm going to put it together, put it on the page, and maybe share it with the world. It's this greater connection to our emotions that we have today that make passion such an important part of our lives. And, I wonder about people who don't have like a real passion. You could say it's a hobby, but I mean something that a hobby is just something you do to pass the time, but a passion is a hobby that you do to pass the time that has a strong emotional investment to it. And today we are very connected to our emotions. And that's because the smaller the world gets, the more we don't necessarily see our own place in the world. We don't see our value in the world because we're one of 7 billion people. It's really hard to feel wanted. It's hard to feel important when there's 7 billion other people on the planet, all of whom are trying to find their own place in the world. So the alternative to trying to become the important person, to like find your niche in the scope of humanity, is just to find something that you're passionate about and focus on that. It's channeling that kind of need, that existential expectation for yourself, and following it, pursuing that passion. So, because we're all passionate about something, all of us are passionate in some way or another, and it can manifest in so many different ways. I'm not saying that everyone is going to be passionate about one thing or another thing. I'd like to think my passions are somewhat superficial in a way, because what am I passionate about? Obviously, my writing is something that is very, very much a part of my life. But I'm also passionate about music. I can't produce it very well, but I listen to a ton of it. And the stuff that I listen to gets into that emotional core no matter what I'm feeling. If I'm feeling anger, then I can listen to something aggressive and it'll calm me down. Or if I just want to feel some significance, if I want to feel kind of the profound emotions bottle up, I'll listen to something symphonic, something that the whole purpose of it is to grab you by the heart and kind of squeeze, and to build up those emotions and get you thinking and looking at the world in different ways. I mean, I'm passionate about movies too. Like, I'll watch movies all day long, and it's not just something that I do in the background or something I do just for fun. It's something that I feel. I look at the stories, I look at the characters, I like the encompassing of all the different elements of a movie. You've got the music, you've got the direction, the cinematography, the acting, the conversation, the interaction, the building of characters, the building of worlds, all that. It's something that when I watch it, it feels like something that I would write. Is this just explosion of emotions? And not all movies have that. I mean, I can watch some stupid movies too just to let my brain turn off, but then there's the movies that I watch because they do elicit that emotion. and and that's just me. I mean, on my side, I've got the different things that I do, and that's part of the reason why I started podcasting, is because there are things I'm passionate about. So like when I talk about writing and movies and stuff like that, those are things that have always been parts of my being that I'm passionate about. But I've also added some other things, like, when I came out as trans, I knew that eventually I would have to explain that to people or to discuss it in a way. So what I've done is taken, my passion for wanting people to understand and wanting to help people, wanting to educate people, and I turned that into a podcast. So now that I have my translation podcast, I'm able to take all that need to educate and to inform and to raise the consciousness of people, not to lecture, but to raise consciousness of who transgender people are and all that. And now that I have a podcast to do that, I feel like I'm actually able to channel those emotions in there and to pour that emotion into these podcasts. On this podcast, I'm talking about some random stuff every once in a while. I'm getting the movie stuff, get the music, video games, all that stuff. But then I'm also getting some social aspect, some social justice issues. There's topics that I want to discuss that I am passionate about. There's a lot of things going on in the world, and everybody has an opinion about it. And, I have my opinion. I like to share that, and hopefully, maybe a little bit of information helps people. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I'm going to pour that emotion into something that hopefully becomes valuable to people. And when I do that, when I do a podcast, it's cathartic. And if you don't know what catharsis means, catharsis is something that usually is done in literature. And what it literally comes from, it comes from a Greek word that means to cleanse or to bathe. And when we talk about catharsis, we're talking about something that is an emotional cleansing, is a good way to describe it. And we all need that in some way. We all need to be able to cleanse our emotions through some sort of medium, however that presents itself, whether it's, with hobbies, with activities, whether it's with social justice, activism, whether it's with religion, whether it's with education, learning, even just being with other people. I could say that some of my friends, their passions are to be around others and to engage with others, to have conversations, to just have connections to people. And that's absolutely a passion, because there's the personal and then there's the interpersonal. And the personal is something, obviously that, you can do so much with it. You can do a lot on your own, in your own sort of isolation, but you can also do a lot when other people are involved as well. And sometimes you just need that. There are days I know when I go, I go hang out with friends, not necessarily just to kill time, but just because I need to have that connection with people. Being an introvert, it doesn't always happen, but there are times where I need to be around people because I need to fill that part of me. I need to cleanse that emotion of isolation, or I need to just have that connection with people. And that's a passion. That's a passion that a lot of people do have, is to be connected. And it's interesting how we aren't always very open about it. It's just something that we might do. We might keep our hobbies and our passions bottled up. A lot of people won't, but a lot of people will. And it's kind of weird to me that we sometimes are afraid of our emotions. And we shouldn't be afraid of our emotions, and especially we shouldn't be afraid of negative emotions. And the reason I say that is because even negative emotions can bring out beautiful things. we can get some beautiful things out of negative emotions. If you are angry or sad or depressed, there are ways to channel that using your passions, whether it's an artistic outlet, whether it's, a hobby that you can just lose yourself in, or whether it's meeting with people, conversing, connecting, making those kind of connections. These are all passions that people have, and sometimes it's not even something that we consciously think about because it's just automatic. It's just like, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I need to be around people, or I need to write a story, or I need to listen to something that will just take those emotions, clean them, get me back to my center, and move forward. Passions are almost like a spirituality in themselves. And it's weird for us to think of like pastimes and hobbies and things like that as a spirituality, but in the world that we live in today, it kind of is because, you know, it's finding that connection with ourselves. And I don't mean to discount religions and things like that with the idea of the self being perhaps the most important aspect of our lives. But again, in a world of 7 billion people, you have a choice of either trying to become a face of that 7 billion people where, the chances of that happening are not very high, or taking what you have internally and pursuing it and, taking your passions and grabbing onto them. And the passions are an extension of ourselves. What we are passionate about is part of who we are. It's part of our identity, and we need to follow it. I've probably said a lot of things in this podcast that are just kind of high level concepts about passions, but I also see that I see so much of it in the people that I know. I see the passions, I see what drives them, I see what makes them creative, what makes them individual, what makes them unique, what makes them vulnerable. And the passions that they exude, the passions that they follow, that's what makes them human. That's what makes them individual. And we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate the things that we're passionate about, that we believe in most, because we are all individuals. And individuality can very easily get lost in our culture today because we're so overindulged in the media, in the news, in all these things that are happening in our lives. And it's so easy to get lost in all that shuffle. But to really hammer home our passions, to take hold of them, to follow them, to pursue them, it's a spiritual exercise, really. It is. It's not just something that, it's not just a hobby. It's not just something that we do to kill time. It's something we do because it's a part of who we are. And we need to celebrate that. At the very least, on our own, we need to celebrate those passions and continue following them and continue embracing those passions with all of our might, because our passions are our life. And we are all important in our own way. So, just some food for thought this week. Not so much a new topic, just some food for thought. I'll do that from time to time, just whatever is on my mind. Thank you for watching. Check out more Paved with Good Intentions right here on YouTube. You can also check out the iTunes and Stitcher feed for bonus content. Also, while you're on YouTube, you can see any of my other videos and anything else I've ever favorited, because I do love that thumbs up button. And be sure to check out my other podcast, Translation, which is found at the link below, as well as on iTunes and Stitcher. And please visit me on Twitter at Danny Kessner, or you can find me on Facebook. Say hello, send me a message. And if you have any questions you'd like me to ponder on the show, send me an email at translationpodcast@gmail.com. I do want to hear from you, so please send me your words of wisdom. And once again, this podcast is produced sponsor-free, so thank you for supporting independent artists. We'll see you on the other side.